Okay, so let me explain to you why we're here. Let me explain to you what my idea is. You guys can do whatever you want. And by the way, you're not obligated to necessarily join the group. What I'm advocating for is for everyone, whether in our group or not, contact your elected representative on the state level, federal representatives, newspapers, friends, groups, anybody, and explain to them the following. When the Founding Fathers wrote the Constitution, they were afraid of someone exactly like Donald Trump. So, in other words, we've reached a historical point where the men that wrote the Constitution in 1787 foresaw a candidate like Trump. Now, we all know in this room, and hopefully everybody knows, that on multiple levels, Donald Trump is not qualified to be president, experientially, temperamentally. The policies that he will push as a Republican president with a Republican Congress means that the Republicans can enact their entire platform, right? I mean, the President Obama was a veto. He could stop bad Republican legislation. So we are now in the position where that bad Republican legislation cannot be stopped. One thing that I would urge all of you to do is to look at the Republican platform. So they drafted what's called a platform at their convention this summer. And that platform lays out exactly what they're going to do. And what you're going to find, if you look at that platform, is that 90% of that legislation is completely contrary to reality. Completely contrary to reality and to science. The reason for that is, and I'm going to record a video that will explain to you all of this better and to everybody better, but the reason for that is the policies of the Republican Party have completely failed. My students know, because I showed you, that from the Reagan Revolution onward, those policies have all failed completely. There's not anything good about any of them. So now we're in the position where the political party that's completely failed now has the ability to enact legislation to put their whole program into place. What that will do, and I'm speaking here as a historian, and any other historians who want to comment, please comment when you're ready. It will hollow out the state. It will rip out the regulatory authority of the federal government. They're already talking about abolishing Medicare, which a lot of people in this country depend on, and replacing it with some sort of a block grant. They will most likely make an effort to privatize Social Security. If they privatize the Social Security fund, that money is gone in 2 years. It'll be gone. I don't know where, but it'll be gone. So if we allow this unfettered control under an unqualified man who, and this is our main point, Donald J. Trump, A, did not win the popular vote. He did not win the popular vote. Hillary Clinton did. So that's number one. Well, no, that's number two. Number one is he's completely unfit to be president. Number two is he lost the popular vote. If he did win the popular vote, I wouldn't be here, and we'd be working some other way. But he didn't. He lost the popular vote. The reason he won the electoral vote, and this is what I thought of last night at 4 in the morning when I was still awake, is this. We underwent in this country a right-wing coup. And that right-wing coup started in 2010. They took over many state legislatures. They immediately re-gerrymandered the districts to make sure that Republicans would get elected on the state level and on the federal level. And then they introduced voter ID laws. Now, voter ID laws have absolutely no reason to exist. We've cast since what, I can't remember the date, I think 2000. In the United States, we've cast more than 1 billion votes. In all of that span, there's been 35 cases of in-person voter fraud. So voter fraud at the polls does not exist. It just doesn't exist. The voter ID laws were designed specifically, and you can look, Republicans said this in Pennsylvania in 2012. The head of the Republican Party said, we have rejiggered Pennsylvania enough so that Governor Romney could win. Now, he didn't win Pennsylvania, but they're being quite open about this, that they have openly rigged the system. So Donald Trump was right. The system is rigged, but it's rigged in favor of the Republican Party and him. So, number one, dangerously unqualified. Number two, he lost the popular vote. Number three, this election was a fraud. It was a fraud in many ways. So, because that technicality exists, that he lost the popular vote, we have a safety valve. And that's what this group is here to advocate for. The safety valve is this. The presidential election is a two-step process. What we did on Tuesday, November 8th was each state elected what's called a slate of electors. Those are the only people in the country that are allowed to vote for president. So there's 538 of them. And then the majority, of course, are pledged to Trump. I can't remember the number off the top of my head. I think it's 289, something like that. So when those people, what happens is, so we elected those slates of electors. So, firstly, do not refer to Donald Trump as president-elect. There is no president-elect of the United States. There is a presumptive president-elect, but there is no president-elect, and there will not be one until December 19th. So when in your language, what I would ask everyone to do is if you have to mention his name, you say presumptive president-elect. He is not the president-elect of the United States. So what happens now is all of those electors, they're elected on population. Rhode Island has 3, California has 55, other states have numbers. On December 19th, they all meet in their state capitals. So they don't meet, all 538 don't get together in a big room. They can, and this is one thing we're going to talk about, but they don't usually. They have to meet in their state capitals, actually. And then they cast their votes for president and vice president. Some states bind the electors and say, like, if you are chosen as a presidential elector, you must vote for whoever you said you're going to vote for. The Supreme Court said in the decision from 1952, Ray v. Blair, there's nothing wrong with the states asking, saying you have to take this pledge. It is unenforceable. So when those electors go to their state capitals and they sit down and they have the ballot in front of them, they can choose any name they want, as long as that person is constitutionally qualified. So the point of this push and what we're trying to achieve is this: to make the country aware that we have a safety valve, that the founders designed this two-step process specifically to avoid a candidate just like Donald Trump. So when we're pushing for this is a media campaign. We don't want to know who the electors are. We don't know their names. This has nothing to do with lobbying the electors personally, and we can't. That would be wrong. All we can do is make a media push and get the conversation started and really make people aware that we have an escape hatch. Most people don't know. They don't understand how this works because no one's ever explained it to them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to record a video that will explain exactly why this is the case. I'm going to keep it to like 2 or 3 minutes. I can literally make this case in 2 minutes if I try really hard. And I'm going to work on that this week. And all we can do right now, honestly, is to make people aware that the safety valve exists and that the American public absolutely has the right, through the media, to make it known that we are unhappy, that we had a glitch election, right? The candidate who won the popular vote is not going to be made president. Okay, things go wrong, and we have that safety valve. So what we're fighting against is despair. And one of the things that I really, really want you guys to know, my colleagues know this, but you guys might not, that despair is like a drug. And my students know I struggle with alcoholism and other things. So I know what despair can do. And getting to that moment where you're so in such despair that you just want to give up, and it seems so much easier just to give up, that is what we're fighting against. We have to get the rest of the country somehow, in coordination with other groups. There's only so much that we can do. But in coordination with other people through the media, we have to get people to get out of their shock and get out of their despair, because we have 33 days to get us off this path. Because the path that we go down with him is so dangerous. The path that we are choosing has dangers too. It does. And we have to acknowledge that. But in my judgment as a historian, the path that we're trying to do, which is take the legal, a constitutional way out, is less dangerous than if we do nothing. So we may not succeed on December 19th, and we're going to have to be prepared for that. And we already have ideas about electoral reform to carry on after that. I personally think that we should organize a general strike for December 20th and just shut the country down and declare and ask for a constitutional convention. That can be organized too. So what I want all of you to know is this is not an easy path, but it is legal, it is plausible, and it's constitutional. All we have to do is make it plausible. That's it. We just have to make it plausible. People will listen or they won't. Minds will be changed or they won't. But you and I can look at our friends when this is all over and say we did the best that we could. Because what this always comes back to is what happened in Germany. That in all sincerity, this is Weimar Germany. And if you went back and grabbed a German off the street in 1945 and said to them, if you could go back and maybe risk a civil war, but get out of this, would you do it? Of course they would say yes. 60 million people dead, 100 million people homeless, wounded, Europe and Asia in ruin. They chose not to resist when there was a right-wing coup in Germany. We are going to have to, but we can do it legally, constitutionally, and plausibly. So this isn't going to be easy, and it might not work. And over the next month, we have to do two things, I think. Number one, focus on getting that media push, getting the idea out there, getting people to understand we have a safety valve, and appealing in an indirect way to those electors. Because honestly, all we need to do, all we have to accomplish is changing the minds of 42 people. That's it. Is it impossible? No, it's not impossible. Is it plausible? I think so. If we try, if we push. So we're going to make the effort because we are in a really, really dangerous situation, in my estimation. And we have a way out. It's a technical way out. We ask those presidential electors simply, respect the national popular vote. And you all know, or I think some of you know, I'm a Bernie person. So spending 24 hours a day, as I have been since last Wednesday, trying to get Hillary Clinton in the White House, that kills me too. But she won the election. And because of a glitch in our system that we have a safety valve to fix, she's not, presumed to be the president. The American citizenry has it in their power, and it is in their right to stand up and say, respect the national vote. Out of 284 people that are pledged for Trump, I don't think it's impossible that 42 people change their minds. Is it likely? Maybe not. I just don't see it as impossible. If any of you see it as impossible, tell me. But I think there's nothing to be lost, I really don't, by a push that is legal and constitutional. And let me just say one more thing, and then anybody can talk whatever they want. The guidelines for working in any way under the banner of better elections now is this. It's essentially decentralized, that people can organize chapters wherever. Individuals you can take 5 minutes and call your congressman and say, hi, I represent Better Elections Now. We're making a push to ask that the Electoral College respect the national popular vote. Thank you. That takes you 4 seconds, right? You can do that. You can, what I hope you guys will do is put up some letters and stuff that we can send to elected officials, come up with some boilerplate language that people can use, copy and paste. Most of it's done online. Stuff that you can send to newspapers. All we have to do is push. And I want you guys to understand that there's a likelihood that this won't work. But it's step one of a much longer process. So number one is you're free to do what you think is best. Post a flyer, print them out, drop them somewhere, whatever. But here's the most important thing. And I want everyone, hopefully people are listening to me, but even if they're not, under no circumstances are we to engage in the politics of rage. Under no circumstances. If you get into a discussion with someone and they're going to scream at you, either let them scream themselves out and then make your rational argument, or you say thank you for your time and you walk away. Do not insult Trump voters. They have a legitimate grievance, the ones who aren't racists. And most Trump voters are not racists. They're not. They're angry, they're confused, they don't know who to blame. And they've been told to blame the wrong people. Okay, how do we overcome that? We overcome it with education. That's it. We educate people and say, you're wrong, you're angry at the wrong people. So this group has nothing to do with confrontation, nothing to do with violence in any way, nothing to do with intimidation, because we have the moral high ground. If we stay within the structure of our argument, that we have a legal constitutional way out of this, and all we're doing is we're presenting that argument to as many people as we can, then we have the moral high ground. If this works, Donald Trump has no legal recourse. There's nothing he can do. So there's a lot of work ahead. And like I said, you can do 5 hours a day, you can do 5 minutes a day. And you can tell someone else to post a letter or call an office or do anything like that. The options are there. I'm going to refine that argument over this next week. I hope next Wednesday maybe we can arrange to record a video. Actually I have a couple in mind, but I need to put them together. So that's what I've done. That's what I've had in mind. And we're all going to have to work as hard as we can, because the path that we're on is so dangerous that we have to take a shot. We just do. We don't have a choice. I can't look my nephew and nieces in the eye. I can't look my students in the eye. I can't look women in the eye. I can't look Latinos in the eye, transgendered people, gay people, all the people that have been dehumanized by this man and by his movement. And that dehumanization is right out of the fascist playbook. And we all know, and the historians in this room know, fascism ends only in one place. Only in one place. And that is violence and war and dictatorship. And that's the path we're on, and that's what we're fighting against. So do everything you can and work as hard as you can for the next month. We have 33 days to make a coherent argument. And I don't know how to do this. I've never done it before. But I feel that the necessity of doing something is so important that I'm trying, and we're all trying. And we can only do the best that we can do. We can only approach this non-violently, non-confrontationally, non-threateningly. We're not threatening anyone. We're not, trying to be rude or anything to anyone. That just know that most Trump voters are not racist. They're just confused. So we can't insult them. We can't attack them. Nothing. We have to just make our case. That's all we can do, is make the case. And that's what we're going to try to do. Whether we win or whether we lose, we will have stood up at a moment of great historical importance. And, my generation failed. My parents' generation failed. It's your turn. And you can do a lot better than we did. But it starts right now. This is the moment where it starts. So that's my pitch.